Yep. All right.
Yeah, this technology has always got me confused. So
Yep.
I'm still trying to hit the live over here on YouTube. But yes, and then we will get everything going here. It says meeting's now being recorded and it's preparing to record. So anyway, yeah, so all right. Here we are. I came across your work. You know, I do have your book too. I have Mysteries of the Cross of Henday. And I do want to promote that as well on my channel, because these are the mysteries that we are actually searching for. We're trying to find our lost and hidden past.
Yep.
And it might not be the topic that we breach upon fully in this chat, but I want to talk about these entities because we're having a bit of influence by some things that we haven't known about. But I want to go ahead and just introduce you. Jay Weidner is my guest today, and he's a renowned filmmaker, author, and scholar. And he's considered to be a modern-day Indiana Jones for his ongoing worldwide quest to find clues to mankind's spiritual destiny via ancient societies and artifacts. His body of work offers a great insight into circumstances that have led to the current global crisis. And his YouTube channel is Reality Check, and his website is jayweidner.com. And with that, thank you, Jay Weidner, for being so gracious to be my guest today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I just was so amazed how it just seemed so easygoing just to invite you, and you're like, sure, I'll come chat with you. And I wish more people had that, you know, that grace to just give people an audience.
Well, I got, when I was young, I had a guy who was a lot older than me, who for reasons I've never been able to figure out, took me under his wing, and he had a huge alchemy library and all of this. And then when I hit 60, I said, you know what? I got to start returning favors. And so then I said, if anybody asks me to talk, I'm going to say yes, unless they're assholes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, you can usually get a sense of something too.
What's up? I got a feedback loop.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'm trying to like manage all these controls, and
Gotcha.
I'm putting up my YouTube live for the chat and all that stuff. So that way we can have that. But yeah, so I wanted to invite you today because I saw your interview with Jerry Marzinski, and I've had him on a couple of times. I've had two of my videos where we had a chat got removed by YouTube.
Why?
Listen, we talk about extensive things, you know, when I talk with Jerry. And so there was one video where I didn't edit the whole narrative about 2020. And we had gotten on there, and boy, Jerry,
that burns you every time. No, I did that same thing. I had a guest who I wasn't even paying attention, and he went into that for about a minute, and I just kind of didn't even think about it, and I put it up, and then YouTube. That was the only time I ever got struck by YouTube.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, you can't talk about that kind of stuff. And then the second time I had another guest with Jerry, and they started talking about how that kind of, you know, modality had killed their son. So I was like, oh my gosh, you know.
Yep.
So it was that kind of thing, and like, oh yeah. It will get you banned and removed. So.
Yeah, the Elohim don't want anybody intruding in on trimming the herd.
Well, I would say that this is there is a dark hidden hand. And that's part of the aspect of our world that we have not really been fully aware of. And so that's mostly what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I'm reading the book Naked Bible, which was by an Italian scholar who I can't pronounce his name, Bigaloni or something like that. You can get it on Kindle for $7. And he just reads the Bible. But he reads the Bible from the view that he can speak all the languages that the Bible was written in. And you realize that you're basically reading the chronology of a warrior tribe, and what they do, and following their warrior god. And and the whole entire Bible, the Old Testament, I mean, is just the the nasty doings of a nasty leader, and apparently, he's still around leading everything. And I think that what we call demons or archons are actually some kind of bizarre manifestation of the Elohim, who, according to the Bible, rule us and created us too. They created us and they made us, and then they endowed us with limited lifespan, and they kicked us out of the garden and the whole thing. And so I think that in a deeply spiritual way, but a very dark spiritual way, I think that the Elohim have unleashed the demonic forces onto us for reasons I do not understand.
Well, I do believe that we can gain insight and introspection into that whole probability when we dive into alchemy, the four elements, and what is considered the great wheel of time, which is the Zodiac.
Yep.
I don't know if you're familiar with the Eastern versus Western zodiacs, but the Western is based in seasonal changes and seasonal operations, whereas the Vedic and Chinese, they're on a different kind of spectrum. They actually go by the actual sidereal stars and all of that.
Really going.
Yes, very deep knowledge. You can actually know the future, past, and present timelines based on that knowledge. And most people aren't aware of that.
There is a sidereal astrologer that I follow, Tom Coleman, I think his name is, on YouTube. And the guy's like right spot on when he says, oh, in 3 weeks, it's like, wow, really? And then it happens, and you're kind of startled. And he explains why the sidereal is working so much better than the Western.
Yes, absolutely. It's more detailed because our whole destiny is plotted out in our birth chart. If you really get a good reading in your birth chart, you can see everything, every aspect about yourself that you never even knew. Like I just found out recently that I'm challenged by Saturn because he's in my Taurus, my house of Taurus. And so I'm challenged by all earthly things, material world. That's what Taurus represents. This is why they have the bull out in front of the corporations. There's some in downtown Atlanta where they have the bronze bull, and they're talking about toroid and things like that. So this is really deeper esoteric knowledge that needs to be practiced and put into foundational knowledge again, especially with children. I think we need to talk more about alchemy of the four elements, things of that nature.
Yeah, I'm going to be, I'm working on it right now. I'm giving a presentation at the Stairway to the Stars Disclosure Conference in Vegas in 3 weeks. And I'm forced to work on alchemy because I'm doing a lecture on alchemy. And then I started realizing that I really need to teach a detailed course. And I think I'm going to give it away for free. I think I'm just going to do it on YouTube and give it away for free because I realize that I have so much knowledge in so many directions that, my days are numbered, and I need to get it out. And so people understand it, because it's absolutely helps you understand this reality so much better, and the spiritual reality that's attached to the 3D reality, and what's really going on there. And so, and alchemy, they talk about these demons. They don't shy away from this subject at all. I mean, and you got to be really careful. You come home with one of them attached to your back shoulder. And so it's basically electromagnetic in nature. That's why, like Jerry says, he was the demon that he was talking to in the hospital. He heard a loud, like a thunderclap or lightning strike. That's because that's the electromagnetic plasma that is actually it makes up the body of the demon. Is this visible electromagnetic plasma, and it's everywhere. We're living in an ocean of this with millions of creatures made out of plasma, and most don't care about us. Most, just like when you're scuba diving, most of the fish don't care about you. They're just swimming around, right? But every once in a while, Like what happened to me one time, you know, I bumped into a manta ray, you know, under the water, right, hit it right in my face. And, you know, I saw all his teeth and everything, and then it started following me, right? And I was like, oh my God, he noticed me, and now he's not going to leave me alone. So I went to shore, I got out of there. But but that's how it works. And so you got to be really careful, pristine in what you do, because you could accidentally call in one of these without knowing it. And so, you know, I don't practice magic. I practice alchemy. I do the Zodiac, but I don't ever try to manifest something like an entity or anything like that. I make sure I stay away from all of that. I can make my own reality, and I do. That's not magic. That's another thing. Magic is when you're trying to manipulate the 3D reality for your own benefit. And so I don't do that. But I know this, everybody I know that was into black magic in my life all died young. All died young. All had weird accidents and strange car accidents. And one guy was even involved where the roof of his house collapsed in on him. And I knew about 20 or 30 of these people over the years, and I, you know, all died right in their late 40s, early 50s, you know, and the stronger that they practice their practice, the earlier they died. So I don't know.
Well, and you know, the thing that I don't think most people have been aware of are all these contracts that we make.
Yep.
Contracts are binding, and all the contracts that we agree to, like all of these, we give our consent to using all these different programs and apps and things online. People don't realize we're looking at a Saturnian cube box as we're looking at the computer, we're looking at a phone. That's a scrying mirror. It's a black mirror, and it's black magic. And so when we're contracting in through this manner, we're actually contracting with darkness.
Yes, you are.
But people haven't really donned those spiritual eyes to see this. So there's a great deception that's happening right now with, you know, contracting with people's souls on a higher level that people are unaware of, to then be extracted into the darkness again.
Yeah, you got to be really careful with that, you know, because, you know, you may accidentally make a contract you really don't want to fulfill. I'll never forget the interview that Bob Dylan did with 60 Minutes, and they said, he said, I was just doing stuff for the big guy. And then the guy goes, what do you mean by the big guy? You know, the guy that runs this world, right? And it's like Bob Dylan just said that he works for the devil. Or the Elohim, I don't know which. But anyway, you think of the tree of life, right? Okay, now we know that Tippereth can be switched. It represents the sun, but also represents Saturn. And it's surrounded by 4 of the Sephirah, right? That surround the central Tippereth of the tree of life. Now imagine those 4 are actually a cube, right? Surrounding Saturn, right? That's what Saturn is. Saturn is the 3D cubed reality, right? And it's run by duration, by time. That time is the great slave of Saturn. And so in the tree of life, you want to switch Tippereth back to the sun. You have to consciously do it. Oh, what happened? Oh, there we are.
Yeah, here I'm gonna show the. Here it is right in my files.
Here's the 4 right there. Thank you for doing this. Perfect.
Yeah, sure. I have all this stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Yeah. So Geburah, Chesed, Netzach, and Hod surround Tippereth, which is also the sun and also Saturn. And you can switch it out that way. And so this is what we call, in my book, we call, Vincent and I, this is the cube of space. It is literally the cube that Saturn inscribes around our solar system, around within the reign of Saturn. The outer planets don't count, just the ones within the solar system. And of course, you can see, the resonances. I love the human figure on the right. You can see that the heart is also Tiphereth. And by the way, this is exactly, if you do the central pillar of the Tree of Life, that's exactly the chapters in the movie 2001: Space Odyssey. It starts out on Earth with the apes, then it goes to the moon, which is Yesod, and then it goes to, in the movie, it goes to Jupiter, but in the book, they go to Saturn, and then they go through the abyss, which is the color light show at the and near the end of the movie. And then the strange hotel scene at the very end of 2001 is the astronaut is now in Kether. So Stanley Kubrick knows his Tree of Life very, very well. That's all I can say.
I'm sure, and especially, I mean, Jewish mysticism, Jewish traditions, they're all about this type of thing. They're about this deeper esoteric knowledge.
Yeah.
And
that knowledge. There's a great book in my library, The Jewish Alchemist, came out about 30 years ago, and fascinating what they were into, and creating living creatures and all sorts of stuff. I mean, I wouldn't do it, but it was still fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, I believe that, when you go into the Kabbalion, I mean, it states all is mind and the universe is mental.
Yep.
So.
And what does that mean? That means that mental is that your mind is, your brain works on plasma. It's electrical. Mm-hmm. And when you can have interface with other brains, invisible interfacing with other brains, if you know what you're doing. And that's what, like, the Elohim have. They have like this really powerful way to influence us with the electromagnetic spectrum that our brain receives. And all of this, that's what magic is. It's a manipulation of the electromagnetic plasma spectrum. And that's what telekinesis and telepathy and manifestation and all of it is just. So 99% of the universe is plasma, and 1% is their solids, gases, and liquids. Yet we only look at the 1%, and we don't really pay any attention to the 99%. But I do. And so what's in that 99%? A whole nother universe that we can't see. That see us, though. They can see us. And and we really have to understand that. And once we do, then the demons will stop coming in, because we will know that they're there and that they're real, and that you do not want them in you. And that is where we're going with all of this, I hope. See, I think that we're actually coming out of the dark age. I've been thinking about this a lot. Like, I think about I knew my great-grandfather barely. I knew my grandfather very well. And I knew my dad, right? And I can tell you, I know more. I know thousands times more than they did combined. And why is that? It's because I have more access to information. They didn't, right? My grandfather lived on a farm, and he had a telephone finally when he was like 22 years old, but he had no way to communicate with the outside world. They saw the same people every day. And, that's a very closed life. And my dad got more out than that, and he had access to other information, but still pretty locked down information wise. And so I think right now, like the work of Jerry and Marzinski and other people like me and others, I think what we're doing, we're bringing out information that is not really been considered in the right way. Because we're not presenting it as religious zealotry or anything.
Yes.
Jerry and I are just kind of matter of fact kind of people. And we don't want really anything to do with the religious part of it, because that just gets you bogged down in all the history and bad feelings and hypocrisy and all that. So I think that's why I find what's going on right now so exciting, because Jerry's bringing forth all this new exciting work, and all these other people that I know are bringing forth work that is really helping us understand this reality in a way that has never really been available to the human race before.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's happening is the pouring back of knowledge. I mean, you're familiar with the symbolism for the age of Aquarius, right?
Mhm.
With the man with the jug of water pouring back. That represents the pouring back of all knowledge back into the collective consciousness.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And so we are now, because of this technology, you know, this technology is a tool. It can either be beneficial or it can be a very harmful, very dark septic energy, which we've already begun witnessing that aspect as it starts to creep into our lives and they're starting to control more. You see the operation coming into play, but it has allowed us to connect on a worldwide scale to all these trains of thought and to connect, like I can connect to you and we can have these conversations that are illuminating people's minds, as opposed to some of the nonsense that people are, you know, selling out to with entertainment and things like that. So it's very valuable. And
Yeah,
this is
it is. And what it should do, if I'm not mistaken, is it should end the Kali Yuga. Because there's a 99% of what's yapping on the internet is just crap. But man, there's 1% that is so good. It's so good. It's so hard to find. And once you find it, it's like you can't get away from it. And what's happening now is like minds are now interconnecting and bringing more and more of this disparate information and crystallizing it. And that's what's so beautiful about everything that's going on right now. And I almost think that we have to just give it away for free, everything from now on. I think that the corruption of the Piscean age has to be dissipated. And the only way it can be dissipated is for people who know how to make free energy devices. Let's put it out on the internet and give it away for free. You know, alchemy, put it out on the internet and give it away for free. And if we do that, then we undermine the entire system that the Elohim have built, which is based on, you do what we tell you, basically.
Yeah, I mean, they have been controlling us because we don't collaborate, because we don't work together. But people don't consider this. It's called the universe for a reason. It's a one voice, it's a one sound system, and it requires all of us working in unison in order for the magic to truly work.
Yep.
The magic in alchemy. I have witnessed this. Now, this is one thing. My life has been sort of a weird series of events that inexplicable. People that would consider this supernatural. Just a few months ago, I was outside. I have a small farm. It's 3 acres. I have horses and chickens, and I have to feed them every day. And I go out by the water spigot and I get water and things. And I was thinking about these different plants that were on my property that I had seen that are edible. But there was this one particular plant called a lamb's quarter that I had not seen. And I was like, I haven't seen a lamb's quarter on my property. And I left that thought right near the spigot. Well, a few months later, that plant started growing right at the water spigot where I had planted that thought.
Yep.
And I was like, is that what I think it is? I mean, this is the magic that's waiting for us once we rediscover it within ourselves, that our thoughts create things.
They do. The universe is a mirror. Just think of the world. The whole universe is just a big mirror, and your reflection is in that mirror. And then you understand that when you think of something, that thought then creates a reality. And it to a point where once you understand this technique, it starts becoming ridiculous. I mean, to where you'll think a thought, and then it's there, and you're like, "What the heck? And what did I do? And how can that possibly be?" And I have so many of these happen all the time now that it's almost becoming like a yawn, right? And I realize that, like, I will think of a subject, and then a friend will write me an email and recommend a paper to read or a video to watch or something that's on the subject I just said I wanted to know more about, right? And I realize that I'm putting out the thought into the universe. The universe is processing it and finding a way to get it feedback to me, and that is, to me, that's magic. To me, I'd rather have that kind of magic than manifesting 3D reality, which seems kind of boring to me.
I know. Well, apparently, you know, are you familiar with Leonard Horowitz?
Oh yeah.
I mean, are you friends with him and talked to him and stuff like that?
I have talked to him. It's been a while, but yeah.
Yeah, and about what he's been discovering with the English language and how the sound frequencies are disharmonic that we emit with our mouth and all.
Yeah.
And it just made so much sense to me. I mean, cymatics is the tool of the universe, and most people aren't aware, but we have been gifted the power of a godlike creation through our sound frequency that we can emit.
I can literally paint a picture in your mind, and you can do the same with words. And so, you know, there's physicist Stan Tenen, who's a little crazy, but he took a regular coat hanger, a metal coat hanger, and he built a torus out of it, a torus shape. And because this was back 30 years ago, and none of us, you know, you couldn't find a torus or anything out there, so he had to make it himself. And then he was playing with it, and then he looked at the shadow on the wall, and he saw that when he turned it this way, it became Aleph, and when he did it this way, it became Bet. You know, and then he realized that the entire 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet were different angle tilts of the torus. And then, of course, you extrapolate from there and say, well, then language is actually spewing out toroidal energies that are hit by the ear, and the ear's what? Spiral, right? The ear spiral. No, all the inside of the ear is all this like sacred geometry, right? And then the ear hears that, resonates with it, it goes into the brain and paints a picture. How is it possible that a bunch of grunts can paint a picture? But they do. And, you know, Noam Chomsky once told me that he said that a guy with a high vocabulary, like 10,000 word vocabulary, talking to a guy who only has 1,000 word vocabulary, and if he uses the words in the proper syntax, in the proper order, even though the guy with 1,000 word vocabulary can't understand half the words he's using, he still understands what he's saying. So that means that it's also psychic. It means that the words are accentuating psychic telepathy between people, and the words are just accentuating it, pushing the concepts and things over the edge so that you finally get it, right? That language is fascinating, incredible, and is magic.
Yes, absolutely. So what I've been diving into with that train of thought is the Semitic language is cymatic language. The true frequency of sound that we're supposed to be emitting. When we get back into things like, you know, going into even Ogham. I don't know if you know about the language of Ogham, the language of the trees, things of this nature. That's getting back to the root of where our foundations are truly from. And that raw alchemy of sound can create through the etheric principle. But you have to have the solfeggio scale completed. You have to have the male and female frequency to have that bandwidth in order to manifest things from the ether. And I believe that we were doing this when Atlantis was around. I believe people were coming together and doing that kind of thing in those stone cathedrals, in those places of worship. Definitely.
And I was just reading recently that apparently Celtic folk music is that. That's what it is. It's the Druid music magic, and that they would they would sing around oak trees and cause the oak trees to blossom, the mistletoe, which they then used on their pineal glands. And also, I had one time I was with a famous sound healer, but we were way out in the middle of the Cascade Mountains in Washington State, and we're shooting a documentary about sound, and we were shooting a pretty hard shoot for the whole day, and we got back to the cabin, and we were pretty tired, and he started complaining about a pain in his wrist, right? His left wrist. And it's like, oh, geez, oh my God, did I kill the guy today? Right? He's going to have a heart attack on me. And I said, man, the nearest hospital is like 4 hours away.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And he says, oh, okay. And I could tell he was scared. And I was a little scared too. And so he said, well, I'm going to go up in the upstairs bedroom and I'm just going to go up there and just don't bother me. So he goes up to the upstairs bedroom and he starts doing all these chants, right? And all night long. I couldn't even sleep. I was like trying to get to sleep. And he was doing all these different chants and things that he learned from traveling all over the world and everything. And then in the morning, I got up. Maybe I had 20 minutes of sleep, and I got up, and there he was eating breakfast. And I said, "How you doing?" He says, "Fantastic." I said, "What were you doing all night?" And he says, "I was using sound to break up the blood clot I think I had."
Wow.
So I'm fine now. And he did. He looked great. Blood was back in his head and everything. So, I mean, that is probably what chanting was originally about, was to heal yourself by creating cymatic shapes in your body that cause healing, right? And so you're right. That's what a cathedral was. A cathedral was a place that you went for healing. It wasn't a place that you went for worship. You can worship there, that's fine, but that's not what it was about. It was when you that's why they were open 24/7. You took your sick there. Your mom gets sick, there was no doctors.
Yes.
So it was the 1200s. So you take them to the cathedral and they sit under the telluric forces that are coming down from the turrets and the spirals and the labyrinth that's used to be on all the floors of the cathedral. And you'd walk around the labyrinth because you're just absorbing all of that etheric power, and then you get better, and that's all it is. And so the cathedral is just a big, huge healing box. Now they're all been decapitated, unfortunately.
Yes,
Chart has a metal roof now, and of course we know what happened in Notre Dame. They'll never repair that. No. So it's a tragic.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a few. There was a video that I came across of a woman who was actually singing one of the hymns in a French church. It's like a small French church. It was still a stone cathedral. They didn't have carpeted floors or pews and stuff like that. She went in there.
Amiens?
I don't know. I don't remember the name of it, but I had
Amiens is one of the few cathedrals in France that's still completely intact. Mm-hmm. And it's got the four beasts, right, of the four signs, the fixed signs. That's the first thing you see when you walk in the cathedral. There's a Zodiac wheel up on the side. And it's like,
it's amazing. I mean, that's the old world and all the knowledge that was lost to us. But we're reclaiming all of that because we need it. We're going to need it for the future to deal with this artificial intelligence that's now rising. Yeah. I see it as a challenge for humanity with the metaverse versus the metaphysical. And that is on the rise because that's what the energy is of this age. But yeah, those resonant frequencies, they used to have cisterns in there too, so that the waters could then be distributed throughout the land. Right. So, and if somebody couldn't come to a cathedral, I'm sure they would just have the water delivered to the person because it's absorbing all of that beautiful sound intonation.
Yeah. The famous British writer, John Michel, wrote a lot of really good books on all this stuff. He noted that when you went to visit somebody at their farm, and I have a farm too, by the way, when you go to visit somebody at their farm, a couple, it had to be a couple, loving couple. He said you would notice as you went further away from the house, the plants got sparser and sparser. They were really big and strong around the house, but as you got further and further away, they get sparser. And he said it's because they're creating this tantric field that is just emanating because they love each other and they love their children and they love their pets. And it's just, the plants are just responding to it. And that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Because man is the measure of the universe.
Right.
And when you look outwardly, you see the green plants. We're in the heart chakra of the known universe. And the heart, of course, if you take that H, you put it on the end, and it becomes the word earth. We need more people to gain this awareness that what we have inside of us, these fears or doubts or pains or suffering, and shutting off the external world, disassociating ourselves from nature, this is killing our world, basically. And I see the world starting to deteriorate because we have disconnected into this man-made universe, this construct of artificial intelligence, which I do suspect comes from below. There's a lot of different connections there. I don't know if you know about Dreamland. I came across information about Dreamland with the military.
Area 51, you mean?
I'm sorry?
Area 51?
Well, they have a place called Dreamland, and I'm not sure that it's directly associated with Area 51. It's supposed to be
right near it. It's right next to it. Yeah.
Underground. Yeah. So the thing to note, again, here we go into Saturnian terminology, because Saturn is known as the Sandman, and he's the purveyor of the dream world. He's like the ruler of the dream world. This is where they even have a series called The Sandman on Netflix in regards to this, because the man, one of the opening series, I think it was the first series, they have a scene where a man summons death. He's like, I'm going to capture death. And it ends up being the Sandman. And the Sandman is then captured, taken away from his home in the dream world, and his dream world starts to fade and collapse. And it starts to have an effect on the actual world. So it's like this overlay.
Saturn is the Grim Reaper.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
which is
Scythe is 7 because Saturn is the 7th planet. So that is Scythe, which is 7.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's so much occult stuff. Like, I have not found the bottom of Saturn's well yet, because there's a lot of information. It's an overlay too with Earth in platonic solids.
Yeah. What's the book about the Saturnian Brotherhood? What's that called? Brotherhood of Saturn. It's a great book. And in it, when I read it, I was like blown away, because the purpose of the Brotherhood of Saturn is exactly what happens in 2001: A Space Odyssey. The ritual of the Brotherhood of Saturn is exactly what Kubrick shows in Eyes Wide Shut at that orgy. That's their ritual. And so I can only conclude that Kubrick must have been in the Brotherhood of Saturn.
Yeah, I'm sure that he had some knowledge of a lot of these darker aspects and what's been happening, because you can summon these principalities to do your bidding, but you have to give them usually your soul or some other contract.
Yep.
That's where we get back into the contracts with even just the apps, all of these things that want your consent to contract. Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm going to put a disclosure in my living will. I already have a living will that upon my death, all contracts are null and void. And this goes through the ether. People have no idea how powerful that truly is. So I've been looking into sigil magic and radionics and, literally everything in our existence, how it affects us. And
it's all part of this secret plasma universe. And it has reverberating effects in every direction. That's why that's why awareness of that universe is paramount to understanding what you're really in, what's going on, what ghosts are, what phantom lights are. And I knew this guy, this rich guy. He was really into alchemy, so he always wanted to talk to me. And one time he says, "You want to see something amazing?" And I said, "Well, yeah, of course." We're at his house, and he comes out with this something wrapped in a really nice piece of velvet, and he sets it down on the table. He takes it off, and it's a chunk of gold about this big, the biggest, huge chunk of gold, weighed about 35 pounds, something like that. It was huge. You know, 35 pounds of gold would cost?
Yeah, a lot.
$100 an ounce. So anyway, I said, "Wow, where'd you get that?" He says, "I searched all over and I got this out of South Africa." I said, "When did you get it?" He says, "I got it about 3 months ago." I said, "Man, it must have cost you a fortune." He said, "You wouldn't believe how much that cost me." And I said, "Wow, that's really beautiful. So why did you do it?" And he said, "Well, because I could, because I had the money. And I said, so that's pretty cool. He says, but you know what? And I said, what? He says, ever since I bought this thing, I've had 4 UFO experiences. I've seen ghosts every day in my house. I've got weird lights, plasma lights coming in through the window and flying around the house. And I said, really? He said, yeah. And then I go buy a lead safe and I put the gold in the lead safe and it all goes away.
Yes.
I was
Yes.
like, well, now.
I have suspected some things that are connected to gold and silver. And there, there are some of the base metals in alchemy.
Definitely.
The right eye is gold and the left eye is silver. And the right eye is electric, while the moon, which is silver, is magnetic.
Right.
And the gold specifically is connected to the higher realms.
Yep.
This is why it's so highly sought after, so that if we were to actually have the true raw form of gold, we could start learning so many amazing things that we can do just with our own spirit and our own energy. And I do suspect, they were making those cakes.
Yeah, what are they called? What are they called?
Yeah, like Ormus, they were making
passion cakes.
Making all kinds of stuff.
And they would put the gold and the silver in it. And then when you got sick, you would eat it. It's what the lamba bread from Lord of the Rings is. Tolkien got it from that. I mean, it was what they used. Everybody had this. It was like a bread, a really hard bread, but it wasn't bread. It probably had flour in it, but it literally had minerals in it. It's gold and silver and alchemical gold. And where I live here in Colorado, I live in a place in southern Colorado. It's really sparsely populated, and it's the San Luis Valley, and it's well known for having UFOs. I mean, people. Oh, sorry about that. I'm going to ignore that. I was wondering why there are so many UFO sightings around here, and then one day I realized, oh my God, in the 1880s they took out 30 tons of gold out of these mountains. There's probably gold dust everywhere around this valley because of that, and all these. I'll tell you what. I think that gold is the philosopher's stone. I don't think gold turns lead into that the philosopher's stone turns lead into gold. I think gold is the philosopher's stone, and I think that if you knew how, if you could take a tincture of gold, and you can use they sell what they call those flakes of gold that you can buy. If I'm not recommending, because I'm not a doctor or anything, but I'm just telling you that I know people who take gold tincture, and it has some pretty wild effects. That's all I can say.
Yeah, well, it's going to amplify the electricity and the spiritual connections in your body. This is what.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's why they give us impure forms of gold. They give us, 14 karat or 24 karat. This is not 100% pure. We need pure gold in order to truly do the alchemical processes that are necessary for those types.
That's exactly right. In fact, I'm not going to say it. I was going to say something, but I realized I was going to say it. I couldn't get arrested. So, yeah, and gold is not that hard to get. I mean, you don't need much. So, if you're in a place that has a history of gold mining, you probably are going to be able to get some out of the streams that are in that area. And you never know. I know a guy here locally. He says he makes $80,000 a year mining the streams here of gold. So. Wow. Yeah, I'm like, wow, really?
Yeah, I mean, we have Dahlonega in Georgia, so yeah, the old gold mine that used to be up in North Georgia.
I'll probably get in trouble, by the way, by saying that gold is the philosopher's stone. We'll see. You might get knocked off YouTube.
No, I don't think so, because I've talked about some of this stuff before, about how I made a concoction. Now I can't validate the authenticity of the white powder gold. That's a colloidal gold that I had purchased from I think it's Mountain Gold or something. I don't know. It's some company in Georgia. They say that they have colloidal the gold and they put it in a solution and it turned it into white powder gold.
Can you send me a link to that? Can you send me a link?
Yeah, I'll send that to you. I have the bottle inside my house, but I began the process of using colloidal silver and colloidal gold for a sick chicken that I had. And I talked about this on my channel one time. This chicken could not see to eat or anything. And I just decided to use him as an experiment, I guess, to see if this would help him in some way. Well, he didn't gain his eyesight, but the chicken wouldn't die. I was like, I just made the elixir of life. The chicken won't die no matter what, because I was like, I couldn't help the chicken. And I felt bad. I was like, I couldn't kill him either. I didn't have the heart. But at the same time, I was hoping that the chicken would just pass because his long suffering was too much. And he wasn't dying. 3 weeks later, I had stopped feeding him, and I'm sorry to even say that, but I wanted him to just pass naturally. And
yeah, I know. I got chickens too. It's tough.
So, I even asked somebody to please come put this chicken out of his misery because I can't do it myself. And they wouldn't do it either. I was just going, oh my gosh. Anyway, it was an interesting phenomenon that the chicken wouldn't die. He eventually did pass of his own accord because I just stopped feeding him because I was having to hand feed him every couple of hours because he couldn't see. And doing that for months is like, oh my gosh, when is this chicken going to pass? So yeah, that was traumatic to me and the chicken, unfortunately. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do that again with this colloidal gold and colloidal silver thing. I guess
be careful with that too. I knew a guy that he was taking I don't know, a tablespoon a day of colloidal silver. And I was like, dude, don't do that. Right. You take a few drops, don't take that much. And he lost his mind.
Really?
Oh yeah. He started hallucinating. And I was like, dude, you can't overdo your Kundalini like that. You got, that's the thing that people don't, and people they'll go take a yoga class and the yoga instructor isn't smart enough to know that you might accidentally release your Kundalini while you're in the class. Right. And all of a sudden you're going to have a Kundalini crack up. I'm sure you've seen a Kundalini crack up, where someone loses their brains because the Kundalini is just right. And it happened to a friend of mine. And I warned him not to do it, but he had the superconductivity was going so strong in him. And you could see it. You could see it was literally his skin was crawling and everything was like, and then I finally got him off of it. I saw him the other day and he was normal again. Right. And I said, okay, just 2 drops in a glass of water. Right.
Yeah.
But I'd like to try the gold. I would like to try the colloidal gold.
Yeah. I mean, well, like I said, I cannot validate the authenticity of it is the only problem. And that's why if I had my own chunk of gold, I would try to do things myself, colloidal the thing myself, because I don't really trust many of these corporate entities out here. And I don't think it's a corporation. I think it's a small independent.
Wait a minute. There's a way that you can test. There's a way to test. I can't remember what it is. Maybe somebody who's listening can help, but they have something, borax, something that you put the gold on it and it changes to a color that will tell you how pure your gold is.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a test gold miners use.
Yeah.
I'm
not familiar, but I'll be looking into it after this for sure.
Back salt. It's some mineral that you use to find out the purity of gold. I can't remember, but I'll Google it after the show and find out.
Yeah, I'll get that information for you too when we're done with all this.
Yeah, but I can find out. Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to talk about some of those entities too. That I'm going to have Jerry. I've invited Jerry back. He hasn't responded yet, but I have a book, and I also practice hypnosis. I took a Dolores Cannon's QHHT course. When I was working in Hollywood sets, I came across her information in about 2016. I listened for like a year and a half about this past life regression therapy thing because I was like, is this real? And I ended up taking her class, and hands down, I believe it 100% because of what came out of my own experience from, practicing with other practitioners. It is profound knowledge that is stored within our own DNA, and it can be unlocked through these different practices of hypnosis. And hypnosis, I try to demystify it. It's a guided meditation. Like we need to change some of the definitions of things, because it's not like you go to some, alternate reality. You're just journeying into your own mind and into your own memories. And they come out as visions, like images in your subconscious mind. So, but learning a lot from that experience, taking the classes, taking even more classes from someone else, just to see what the difference was in different hypnotic processes. I've been coming across other books and other teachings from other people. So I came across a book, and I'm going to have to change my screen here, because I'm on mirror screen right now. So it doesn't look like I'm looking away from you while we're talking. This is a book that was written by a dentist. And this guy, William Baldwin, it's a book called Spirit Releasement Therapy. In here, the man describes people who are possessed, the people who are gay, for example. He's like, the gay people that were his clients that came in, he would depossess them from spirits, and they would come out straight again. Now, this is not based on my statements. This is what's in this technique manual. So when you really go through a book like this that talks about these kinds of spirit, attachments and things, you start getting a real sense of what we're dealing with out in the world. When people get triggered emotionally, especially into lower states where they're angry or hurt, and what allows these things to attach to us are these emotional states, the trauma, the depression, abuse, ritual abuse. All these things allow these other spirits, because it causes some sort of diminishing effect for our auric field, and then these things can come in.
Yeah, like Barbara Brennan's work with the using your field to protect yourself from the attacks that are coming at you, and it does work. Basically, if a demonic force comes up around you and you have a strong etheric field around you, it just goes away. It doesn't want to bother with you. It's looking for the ones where the field is clinging to the skin almost.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's a good one.
Yes.
I can't get through that one, but I can get through this one, right? And the problem is that when you're out in the country, like I am, I can really expand my field really big. But when you're in the city, it gets constricted because you're around everybody. You don't really want to mix your fields with people that you don't know or you're not sure about, or so you tend to get in an elevator and you shrink your field down, and that makes you more susceptible to things. And yeah, I think that people have to find ways to pump up their etheric body. And I talk about all the time on my show. I have these things here. These are all over my house. These orgone generators.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
They're all over my house. I mean, everywhere. And they're just pumping out the etheric energy all the time. And people will say when they come to my house, "Oh, it's so calm here." And I'm like, yeah, well, I got the ocean sound on over there, and I got all these pyramids everywhere. And so I try to create a really an environment in my house that is sacred. And then I know that it acts as a buffer for these demonic entities that are out there looking for victims. Yes. I wrote a screenplay one time when I was in Hollywood, and the opening scene was, I didn't know what archons were or any of this at the time, but I'd had a psychedelic vision one time, and I saw what I now know were demons. And so I was incorporating it into my script, and basically it was a boxing match. And these two boxers are boxing and beating the hell out of each other, and the crowd's screaming and yelling, and then these parasites come over the edge of the stadium and enter in and start getting into everybody's, middle chakras, and then they just go more and more crazy, and the boxing match got more crazy and violence and the whole thing. And I really actually believe that is what's going on in a boxing match or a sporting event, like a violent sporting event. Probably not so much baseball, but football. Yeah, and you can imagine what kind of demonic entities would come in during the gladiator things back in the
Oh
Roman.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you read the descriptions of the people at the Roman Colosseum, and they're demonic. They're demonically possessed. They're screaming and yelling, and they're fighting each other. And it's like, you're going to kill somebody over a football team, really?
And that's what Hollywood has been, is this great ritual that people perform in. I've even heard, I don't know if you've heard this, but even in the theaters, they're built over specific ley lines or something, but there's like entities that are there to harness the loosh from humans as they release their emotions through the different movies. So
that's why I don't make those kinds of movies anymore. I realized that I was releasing all of that into the minds of everybody. I think that it could be true because also, it's not so much today with the new theaters, but in the old days, the theaters looked like temples. They looked like Greek temples, and they would have the Greek facade in the front. You would walk in, and everything was like a temple, and that was done on purpose. That was done by the people that owned the movie business, the Khazarian mafia, and they built it for that purpose because they were, and these are the minions of Saturn. I'm sorry, but that and so, like hypnosis. Well, movies are hypnotic.
Oh yeah, all of them pretty much.
The flickering light, the way the light flickers, and you're in this room and everybody's crying at the same time or laughing at the same time, and it's magic. This is ritual magic.
Yes.
So
Yes. It's creating a huge egregore of energy. People they're not aware of their own power. And especially when we form in mass together, it's a very, very extremely powerful energy when we can focus our minds together in purpose. But right now we're divided on every level, and it's compartmentalized on every level, that our magic is shooting out in different directions and causing all this chaos. Like, we are co-creating chaos with each other, with the dark forces that are now, over us. This whole dark force, the corporate is death, corpse orations. And so we have to come back into our consciousness about this and bring back heart center reality.
Yeah, and I think what you really have to do is not really care about the ones who don't want to do it. You can't bring everybody along with you, so don't even bother. It's just a dead weight anyway, and you'll be arguing with them anyway about it all. So I think that the world is now broken into the Aquarians and the Pisceans, and the Pisceans are the WEF and the governments and the corporations, and they're all clinging to the Piscean age, and they're not going to let it go no matter what. And then the Aquarians are going, I wonder why everybody's so uptight. I mean, what's going on with this? Then the Aquarians actually think that they're faking it. They're like, come on, you can't really believe that. Really? You're just kidding me, right? And, like, no, I'm not. And so the Aquarians are, they see it, and nothing like the last 3.5 years has shown this to be more true than ever, that there's this gigantic break. And so the Aquarians, us, we have to say goodbye. We're going to go off and make our own society. And I was listening to this wonderful lecture the other day by an African-American history professor. And he's like, well, so, they let the blacks out from being slaves and they went out into society, and the society said, no, you can't go to our schools. No, you can't go to our hospitals. No, you can't come to our colleges. So they said, screw it. We'll make our own hospitals. We'll make our own universities. We'll make our own schools, and we'll just teach ourselves. And by 1940, their schools and colleges was parity with the white universities and schools. That's how much they had achieved. And we can do that too. We can say, no, we're done with you. What defines us is that we have a completely different way of looking at the universe, and we don't share that with you. And we know that you want to kill us because we don't share that, but we don't want to kill you. That's the difference between you and me. And that's the way we have to do it. And we have to understand exactly what we've been talking about this whole show, which is this magical plasma universe that's out there. And I predict over the next 5 years, probably mostly people about my age are going to just start letting it out.
Yeah.
That's it. We're done. The children are in charge. It's time for the adults to step back in the room. And we're going to paint a picture of reality that is at complete variance with the Piscean reality. And we don't need to worship gods or anything like that. We don't need to go to war to fight for gods. It's pointless. And so I actually believe the Saturnian hold is beginning to loosen, and we're moving away from that. So we'll see.
Well, that's why we're seeing this major shift in the control system.
Yeah.
The corporations are about to become obsolete in the way that things have been done through banking in the old ways of thinking, because we can see that the BRICS nations are now coming about, and this whole digital empire that's rising. You have centralized and decentralized currency coming about, and that's going to divide the world into two. So I believe that the age of Aquarius, which is represented by the ankles, by the way, it begins at the ankles and goes up the shin. And that's two foundational columns and two foundational forces of thinking in the world and you can see the duality starting to manifest.
Oh, yeah.
It's becoming more polarized. But then we have to go through Capricorn, which starts at the kneecaps and comes up to the thighs and onto the hips. That too, it just means that it's coalescing even more. But when we get back into Sagittarius, which is going to be the hips, that's where the power begins, when we start to reemerge as an entire universe construct. And more people will be on board in moving in a unified direction, I believe, because it's man is the measure of the universe. And it can be spoken of as a story through astrology.
Yeah, and through the human body. And the number of symbolic coincidences is overwhelming. And it's just that nobody's ever talks about it. And
Yes.
That's what has to happen. We have to change the conversation and start talking about this stuff in a matter-of-fact way, not like,
Yes.
oh, this is so amazing.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Some of the airy-fairy stuff, it just
get
gets
rid of the airy-fairy stuff and not sensationalize it, because it's not sensational. It's just the physics of a universe that we didn't even know existed until just a few years ago. I
have an image I can share too. Here you go. Here's as above, so below. Man is the measure of the universe. And, we begin down in Pisces and we come up the physical body as we go around the great wheel of time. And all of the body parts, like the different organs, they're connected to these different ages, these celestial ages. So they're connected to the celestial heavens. It's a very precise science that most people are not aware of, that we need to ground ourselves in, because this is the alchemy that we're missing in our entire construct. And once we grasp this knowledge again, then we can know ourselves fully, how we're connected divinely to everything outside of ourselves, and then beyond into realms of dimensions that we can traverse once we go into the astral plane, astral projecting and all of that. So That's how
Yeah,
all.
it's open to all of us, and we put the Elohim put a governor on our brain, I think, and or our spirit, and it doesn't allow most people to get out past that point where they put that thing on us, and they don't want us to discover it because that will free us. That's the whole point. And once you understand what's really going on, once you understand the tree of life and the tree of knowledge, then you're liberated from their grasp, and they don't want that, and they want you under there all the time. And they have human agents who they endow with psychic powers and things, so that their human agents are aware of a lot of the stuff that we're doing before we do it. And so we have to think about that also. So the whole thing is going to come unglued, and that's a good thing. And so our side, the people that are the Aquarians, they have to start prepping right now. I mean, if you aren't prepped, you should be, and you should start right now. And if you got money, go somewhere out in the country, and even if you're poor, go out somewhere out in the country and try to get away from the coming chaos that's coming as these demonic forces begin to really concentrate on causing as much chaos as they possibly can. And that's what we're witnessing. I mean, I'm sorry, but when I look at our world leaders, all I see is a bunch of demons. That's all I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can't even look at them. They make me ill when I look at them. Everyone.
It's the story. We're watching a play, a grand play, and it includes both sides, both the left wing and the right wing of the same bird. And their story is just a narrative for the ones who do not know themselves fully to follow, because this is what is done. There's always someone that's writing a story throughout each age and epoch. Who is writing the story and who is following? Because I believe as a spirit and a soul combined into this unit, we're supposed to start writing our own story without, being of the world, being in the world, but not of it, is profound when you truly look into that and grasp what the alchemists of old were doing. That's what they did. They were in the world, but not of it, because they were out studying all of these topics that we're talking about now, that about the elements of alchemy, how they're divinely connected to all that is. And you can see all of those aspects of the four elements operating in unison throughout every living being, and how it's just tied to literally everything because it's all sound.
Yeah. And then, you have to ask yourself, well, how did the alchemists, so physics says that there's four states of being. There's your a solid state of being, a liquid state of being, a gaseous state of being, and plasma. All right. Well, how is that different than earth, air, fire, and water? It's the same exact thing. So the ancient alchemists had the exact sketch of the universe that our advanced physics has, right? But they just use different terms. And and the plasma is the secret fire of alchemy. So all through alchemy, they talk about the secret fire, the fire that does not burn, the fire that you use to make your experiments, the fire that causes life itself, right? They're telling you right there, but because they use the word fire instead of plasma, everybody thinks that they're reading some kind of fairy tale or something. What are they talking about? But once you understand that, no, this is a fire that does not burn. It's all around us.
Yes.
And sometimes it coalesces into plasma lights and lightning balls and fairies and gnomes and all of these different things. That's what's going on. And also we know that a large amount of electricity concentrated in one spot will cause a portal to open. And so large amounts of plasma, like say in a crevice in a mountain, a granite crevice, it builds up a huge amount of a plasma charge that you can't see, and people will walk through it and disappear, and they're never seen again.
Yes.
And so once we become aware of this, then we're going to be in control of our destiny. The people in charge don't want us to even be looking at this stuff, and they do everything you can to make sure nobody watches your YouTube and all the rest of their little tricks. But I don't think the side is not going to hold any longer. And I think the Aquarians are just, that's it. We're not going to do it for money anymore. This guy, some young guy, had a big hit song, the Richmond, north of Richmond. It's a young guy, he got a big beard, redhead, he playing his guitar, and he got 58 million hits on YouTube, right? The country western business offered him $8 million to come sign with them. And he says, nah, I just soon live in my trailer, live with my dogs. Thank you very much. And that is an Aquarian right there.
That's taking back the power. That's standing
right.
in your power and not giving up to this dark seed that has taken over.
That's right. And saying to the Pisceans and their old ways, nah, I want nothing to do with you. And I think that's what we have to do. And I think it's going to happen on a big basis. And I've seen other people recently who have decided to just let everything loose and not take any money for it or anything. For one thing, the boomers are the boomers got all the money. So it's like, do you really need to have any more money? I mean, if you have a lot of knowledge, don't you think you should start helping, younger people out? I don't know. That's how I feel.
Yeah. I mean, I don't monetize my channel. I knew that YouTube would try to control me. And based on my experience just with PayPal alone, robbing my own personal bank account, I have since, I don't even know how to accept online payments because of this great deception that's going to be part of the centralized banking system of control, basically, where they control everything and they're going to have
control.
Yeah. And I don't agree with any of it. So I'm like,
no,
okay.
In fact, I'll go one step further to everyone listening. We can't let that happen.
I know.
We cannot let the digital dollar come. We can't. I mean, you can't. That is slavery. That is
absolutely.
slavery. They're doing it for that reason, and we can't let it happen. We can come up with other monetary ways to exchange, come up with our own money if that's what you have to do. Maybe local communities can create money that they use, but we can't. You can't do it. We can't.
Well, I believe that the barter system's coming back too. I mean, we can't control what the future is going to resonate at because we already see our kids being lost to the machine. The kids today are selling out to the Borg and
Not
they have
all,
no
some
idea.
are. Yeah,
I mean, the
are.
Oculus on their forehead. There's some that are still grounded in reality, but there's not enough. And the kids today, there's fewer now learning about farming practices and that than there used to be. And they want to be a part.
Somebody, if there's a rich person watching, you got millions of dollars, or you got high-tech money or something, why don't you start an online school to teach kids how to milk a cow and how to grow food and just do it. Just do it for free. And while you're at it, if you're still listening, why don't you start a free university for everybody? Yeah, a university with top-notch professors. Come on, man, you got a bunch of money. Use it in the right way. I don't understand any of this. Why isn't there a course for everybody that you could take on physics and mathematics and chemistry and music and
for free?
For free.
Because these people with money, they have just been about themselves. It's just been their focus. They're focused on what they can do with their own money instead of sharing in this universal, way of thinking, like, let's share everything we have. That's what the future holds for all of humanity. Once we get back around to the golden age, when we get to the age of Gemini, by then we will be sharing absolutely everything. And that's the beginning of the golden age.
That's a long way from now.
Yes, it is a long, unfortunately, but that doesn't mean that we can't begin this new golden age in small little pockets.
That's right.
In
That's what we have to do
around the world.
But there are people who are very knowledgeable who think we have actually moved from the Kali Yuga to the Dwapara Yuga. So I don't know. When I look out at the world, I see the madness and the entities getting into people and making them think that they're a woman or a man and when they're not and all that. I'm like, whoa, I don't know. It looks like the entities are worse than ever.
Yes. And I mean, I believe that CERN has a hand in that as well. You know, the energy and the things that they're doing with CERN. It's supposedly built on the Temple of Apollyon. I don't know exactly, but you know, and they're trying to make one bigger now. It just seems to me like they are creating a vortex for more of this dark energy to come in. When you learn about Yggdrasil, are you familiar with the Norse cosmology?
The which?
It's the Norse cosmology of our world called Yggdrasil.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's the cosmic egg. Yeah, it's over in, you know, Norse in their
It's a Norse
cosmology.
concept. Yeah.
And it talks about it. Hey, this is where I started questioning things because it kind of raised my eyebrow when I came across words like Nephilim, you know, in the Bible. And then you come across a land that's in Yggdrasil called Niflheimer. And I'm like, okay, that's like Nephilim, right? And it's a land of spirits and frost giants and mist. But then there's also Hel, Hel, in Yggdrasil. Now, this is also in the Marvel, you know, with Thor and Loki. That's basically that whole narrative. And it almost seems like somebody wants us to look into these old myths and legends by putting out movies like that. So that you can
think about it. If you think about it, Superman, who was created by two Jewish guys in New York, is essentially the Elohim. He can do what the Elohim can do. He can fly. He's impervious. He can die, just like the Elohim can die. But you know, and you got to wonder. You really got to wonder. You know, why did they create Superman, right? And to show that there's this all-powerful being that, you know, we have no chance against. And you know, okay. And say I agree with you. I think that there's just so much weird stuff in movies and in comic books and things that are so related to esoteric matters. You know, like the Death Star in Star Wars looking just like the moon of Saturn, Iapetus, right? It's like, what? You know, and we didn't photograph Iapetus supposedly until 2005 or something. So how did George Lucas in 1997 or no, 1977 know? Was it just intuitive? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, you know, there's a Darth Vader statue that's in Russia too. There's a statue of Darth Vader, and like that's, I guess, where they got the notion of Darth Vader. But Darth Vader is Saturn. You know, he represents Saturn, and Luke Skywalker. Luke
and if you think about the way it's worded, it's Dark Vader, Dark Father. That's what Saturn was the Dark Father. And his son was Zeus, who overwhelmed him and took him over. So he's the Dark Father, or the Darth Vader, Darth Vader. And over and over, you see this. George means Earthwalker. Okay. So George Lucas, his name is Luke Earthwalker, right? Turned around. And over and over, you see this stuff. And you do wonder. You have to wonder it looks almost like it's being orchestrated out of some central place. And they're like, you know, kid, make me a movie and put this guy in it. You know?
Yeah, you know, so here's what I've determined, that all of this, what we call entertainment in movies, it's the modern day version of oral traditions that used to be passed down from generation to generation. That's basically what we're looking at, is the new age, you know, for the age of Aquarius or whatever we're going into. This is the new oral tradition. Well,
you know, and again, and it goes back to the ancient times. I mean, what would you do when back, 8,000 years ago? Well, you'd sit around the fire and everybody would be looking at the flickering light. And then the older guy would start regaling you with stories about one time when he was hunting, and another time he had a tiger, and, you know, and all this. So this is imbued into us as human beings, that we sit in front of a flickering light and listen to stories. And that's exactly what movies are. And let's not underestimate the people that the cabal, whatever you want to call them, they use ritual and for mysterious reasons. So movies are ritual, and and people going, millions of people going over and over and seeing the same movie over and over. That's about as ritual as you can get.
That's
And
a huge egregore. Yeah.
oh my God. And and you know, and then I was just commenting recently how symbolic the Kennedy assassination was. I mean, it was Camelot, and he's killed at the Triple Underpass at 33rd degree. That's where Dallas is. And he's King Arthur, and Jackie's Guinevere, and the killing of the king, and the whole thing. And you're like, you know, what is this? And it is some kind of strange magic that they're working on us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So they've had all of the keys to the kingdom. They, you know, I feel like after the fall of man from the highest state of Aries, because that's what it represents in the human body, and that's what it represents in the zodiac wheel, is that we fell from the highest estate back down to the 2 feet of Pisces. And during this collapse, because Mars was the ruler in Aries, and that means war. So there's like cataclysmic energies that affect all consciousness on all levels. And that fall has led us into this darkness, the fall to darkness, to where we're ignorant and we're kind of, I see Pisces as the 2 feet. We're floundering around looking for the path to follow. And so the theme for Pisces is I believe. So people are just following whatever somebody else is coming up with as a narrative to follow.
Yep.
Now we're going into the age of Aquarius, where all of the knowledge is pouring back into the collective consciousness. And we're going to be, now our theme is I know. Yep. And we're going to know our history. We're going to know what happened to us. We're going to have the knowledge back into our toolbox for the tools to use for the future. So, and it involves us learning how to meditate and to connect to our higher spiritual aspects and to connect to the lower physical, so that we can then know divinely what our path is forward, as opposed to the metaverse, which is trying to make a huge attempt to, you know, manifest before everybody comes online collectively, to be a substitute for that whole dynamic of the divine connection.
Yep, I totally agree with that.
So, I mean, it's crazy. I had my own experiences with archons when I was working on Halt and Catch Fire. It was about 2015, I think, or 2016. I was working on set and they had called lunch, but I always took my lunch because I would bring my organic food and then take a little 10-minute nap, you know. But anyway, I was walking through the video village where the directors put all their stuff. And as I'm thinking about all of my food that I brought, I'm looking around the room at the director's chairs, and I'm moving through this office space. And I looked to my right, and there was a director's chair with a black backpack on it. And I'm thinking about my own personal thoughts. But all of a sudden, as my eyes went to the right, this thought came in my head that I want to take that backpack. And I immediately, because I had been learning about the archons then, at that time I had, you know, delved into it, I immediately recognized it for what it was. And so I shot my eyes forward, and I was just like, get out of my head. No, I don't. You know, I was doing all this stuff. But it is profound. Like, these things can control and influence you if you allow them.
No, it was happened to me. I'll tell my story, then I think I have to go. But
yeah, sure.
It was about 5 years ago, and I got this thing in my head that something was real, and it was obsessing me. And I said, my God, this is really going on. Oh my God, this is really going on. And then I went from, oh my God, I have to put a stop to this, right? And then I was absolutely going to do something that would have really gotten me in a lot of trouble. I mean, a lot of trouble. I probably would have ended up losing my house and everything, right? And I caught myself just right at the last second. I caught myself and I went, what are you doing? You know, you're going to go do this? Really? And then, you know, I looked into it with a clear eye and I realized it was just all a fantasy, that some demon had gotten inside me and was just, you know, and whispering in my ear. And And so I tell people that if you're about to do something that normally would seem a little crazy, maybe you shouldn't do it. Maybe you should just sit down and have a glass of water, because you're probably going to make a big mistake. I see it all the time. I'm sure you do too. People who believe that reality is one way, and so they act on it, and then reality comes and just smashes them in the head. Says that's not how it works. Boom, and then you watch the guy and say, I told you not to do that, but you can tell there's something in there whispering in their head that, go ahead, keep doing it.
Yes,
And then I always imagine that the demons just start laughing when he actually did it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. This is where that whole Loki notion comes into play, that trickster entity that's trying to persuade people to do dark acts and do things that go against their higher intuitions. So absolutely.
Impulse is probably evil. Probably. And you watch like YouTube videos of people doing impulsive things and you're all perplexed by it. Well, just think that person probably got a demon in them and they just decided to just do something. I saw a YouTube about 2 weeks ago. This guy was standing on top of the subway in New York City. The subway has this rail on top where it's connected and electricity comes through. And he touched it.
Oh, my.
He touched it.
Oh, my gosh.
He completely crumbled.
Entities,
Right, crumbled. Around the time, he just right down on the roof. And I'm like, dude, what were you thinking? He just touched 50,000 volts?
Well, this is where we're talking about the influences and exactly what Jerry was talking about with the schizophrenics. They are just completely overtaken by those entities.
Yeah, and I have friends who are schizophrenic. I really feel bad about it because what can you do, But I am going to have that guy that Jerry was talking about, Mace. He's dead, but I'm going to have one of his people that works in him. He apparently has some kind of thing that allows you to liberate these demons from you immediately.
Oh.
So I'm going to have him on my show or have somebody on my show. I don't know if it's him or her, but soon.
That Mace energy method.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting to find out.
Because we got to teach people how to get rid of these things.
Yes.
I don't know how to get rid of them. I have no idea.
I'll tell you this. So higher frequencies, the color purple, Jerry talks about some different Psalms in the Bible that can actually help, but we need to think about more permanent solutions, because if you think about fields of energy and radionics, we're wearing synthetic fabrics that diminish our auric field, as well as the foods. The poisonous foods that we eat, this is diminishing our auric field. Everything around us, the water, air, they've tricked us into poisoning ourselves, because that's karmic law that, once you accept this contract, to do these things, then it's on you, not somebody else.
Right.
It's your free will choice to go into a commercial grocery store and make the purchases and bring them home and eat them. They're putting out the poison.
They told you. You didn't listen. That's it. That's what it is. Don't blame you. Don't blame them for your mistakes.
Exactly.
They have to tell you what they're doing, and they do. And over and over and over, that food is crap in the store. You know it. Don't eat it. I mean, it's better to starve, actually. It's better to starve. Actually, it is. It's better to be loose and light and maybe a little hungry than it is to eat that crap.
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, these are the things, though, to don the eyes of all of the things that are affecting our auric field, that are in literally every aspect of our world, because the shapes, the colors, the materials, they're all in a septic energy, unless it's made by nature. And this is the only way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, if your color schemes in your house should be upper chakra colors, like I have turquoise back there. I put turquoise everywhere, and purple, and you have to live a conscious life. The only way to combat all of this negativity is to be conscious, fully conscious all the time. And that means eating, breathing, exercising, get out in the sunshine, walk in the woods, get the freshest water that you can possibly get, and stay away from most of the food they're selling. And by the way, the food supply is really deteriorating since
Yes.
the last 4
yes.
years. Just really gotten bad. And I grow a lot of my own food. All of our, we have a huge garden, 25 boxes, gigantic boxes, and chickens and cows and the whole thing. So
Absolutely, we have to, but I don't want to keep you too much longer because I know you have to go. But thank you so much for being my guest. It was such a delight to talk to you.
yeah, no problem. And I think you're doing really good work.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, and I'm sure I'll probably reach out to you again for another chat in the future.
Sure.
I'm very interested in knowing about your alchemy course, so you're going to have to go forward with that.
I am going to go for it. Probably be after the start of the year. I'm going to do it.
Okay.
I'll do
All right.
like one class a week for probably 50 weeks, something like that.
Well, that'll be great. Well, just keep me informed. Let me know.
I will. All right.
Thank you.
Yep. Huh. There we go.